Reports of James Harden wanting a trade and then his public statements about the situation in Houston being crazy and unfixable. The Rockets finally were forced to send Harden to Brooklyn. Former MVP had also previously made it known to the team that Brooklyn was at the top of his list of preferred destinations. So, Shannon, is it a good thing or a bad thing that stars can now force their way wherever they want to go?
Skip, I like the players have more control over their careers, but I just believe there's a better way to handle it. I don't like the way James Harden handled the situation. You show up on time, you show up in shape, and you play hard, although you've let the team know you would like to be moved. You're unhappy, you don't feel you can compete, you can contend for a title, and you would like to go somewhere, get whatever you can get. But please try to accommodate me, because I've seen players give their all to teams and get traded. So I think it's fair play that players should have some control if they're tired and they don't feel that the team is putting them in the position to win. Although I believe Houston did everything they possibly could. But what I feel and what James Harden felt are two different things. I just don't like the way he went about it. Skip, you don't show up late. You don't show up 20, 30 pounds overweight. And you don't quit on your team. As Boogie Cousins said, y'all talk about last night was disrespectful. Hell, the disrespect happened long ago. Off the court, in the offseason, how he showed up looking.
Well, he didn't show up.
Exactly. And when he did show up, I'm like, no. So I don't have a problem with Skip, with guys say, look, I'm unhappy here, just like the teams. Teams says, hey, teams always say it's a business decision. We're trying to get better when they move players. Well, players says, so you know what? I want to get better. I want to contend for a title. But I just believe there's a level of professionalism that should be exhibited on both sides. And I thought what I thought was going to really happen, Skip, that it was because once they told him to stay away, I said, well, they're going to tell him to stay away because he's poisoning the water until we find a trade partner. Didn't know they were already working behind the scenes, but until we found a trade partner, you just stay away, because it's best that you just stay away. But that lasted for about 6 hours. They found a partner, and they got him up out of there.
Yep. So I find this a fascinating and frustrating question, because I have always been pro-player versus ownership. Your league that you played in is still run by the owners.
Absolutely.
They are in command and in control, ultimately,
yes.
right?
Yep.
This league has been more and more player-centric, yet it's come to the point where players are exercising their power in the wrong ways, but with the power, because they do have the power. I told you how many times on this show about my man Kawhi Leonard. He was my favorite player in San Antonio, and I have forgiven him for what he did to my team, but I will never forget what he did, because he wrecked it. And they did the best they could to get out from under him, because he just quit his way out of town.
Yeah, he wasn't coming back.
He had a master plan, and he said, if I have to go 1 year for a layover in Toronto, I'm going to get home to L.A. the next year.
Right.
And he pulled it off like clockwork.
It'd been interesting to see, Skip, if he'd had a situation like James Harden, if he'd had 2 years left on the contract,
okay,
what would have been his course of action?
Good question, but he took on an organization that was looked at as the Patriots of the NBA,
right.
The one that you did not challenge. The one coach you did not mess with was Coach Pop, and he just said no to Coach Pop. I'd never seen anything like it. No players ever challenged Greg Popovich like this young man. He was still a very young man, and yet all they could get back, they got DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl. And what happened the next year? They did make the playoffs, and they lost to an up-and-coming Denver team in 7 games in the first round. Then what happened last year? They missed the playoffs. Okay? It's because you're just sort of left low and dry. And what's about to happen in Houston? Well, now the reports are Oladipo doesn't really want to be in Houston or stay in Houston. Right. So did they just rent him for this part of the year?
Well, Skip, he only has he has an expiring contract, so that makes him very appealing to move him again.
Okay, but my point is, where does it leave Houston? Can you replace James Harden? You just can't. They're left for quote unquote dead.
At least, Skip, when the Pelicans lost AD, they got Brandon Ingram, who turned into an all-star.
Okay.
They got the first pick in the draft in Zion.
Okay, but did they make the playoffs last year? They did not.
But you see, they have some nice building pieces. So the question is, can John Wall, Christian Wood, some of these, we got to see who they draft, Skip, with those picks.
Cousins,
Boogie. Yeah. Can they make, but the best thing about it, Skip, I think they had to say, after what Boogie said, I don't think it would have been the best interest that James Harden show up to practice, because after he did what he did, I'm not sure that Boogie was the only player that felt like he had quit on his team, and it would be best that he not be around.
Okay. So ultimately, I'm very happy the players have this power.
Right.
I'm not always happy with the way they utilize it, and I believe our commissioner of this league, Commissioner Silver, is not happy with this look, because I think it will alienate some fans. Obviously, those in Houston are not going to be real happy with this now.
But Skip, I mean, David Stern, he vetoed. I mean, think about it. He allowed super teams to happen, but he vetoed Chris Paul going to join the Lakers.
Yeah.
So, and then vetoing.
They were running that team at that point.
And he didn't want, he thought, well, because the Lakers would have probably won about 3 or 4 more championships. But he didn't, but in the process of eliminating what he thought would be a super team, he created others.
Yep.
Because then you had LeBron, and then you had KD, and now you got this situation.
Yep.
And now you got another situation with LeBron and AD, and Kawhi and Paul George. So where you suppressed one, you gave the uprising to others.
Yep. So right there in Houston, you have a Deshaun Watson playing in the National Football League, who's in the same virtual situation where he's saying, I just don't like the way, the direction. I need out of here. Well, is he going to force his way out? Probably not.
He probably can't. But the difference is, Skip, is that James Harden, all those years, Daryl Morey ran the decisions that he was going to make by it.
He did.
This guy didn't run the decisions by James Harden. They told Deshaun that they were, we were, and they didn't do it.
Right.
Now they want to backtrack and go interview Eric Bieniemy. But when he was on the bye week, Skip, that's the time you interview the guy.
No.
But now, Deshaun, you upset about that? Okay, we'll go interview him. Deshaun said, no, I'm on vacation. I'll see you when I see you.
Thank you.
Well, you guys know who is fired up about this news? Knicks superfan. Michael Rappaport is joining us next. He has a lot to say. I don't know if he's happy, upset, angry. We'll have to wait and see. Best offense ever.
I mean, you look at it on paper, you look at what they have. They got guys that's won multiple scoring titles, and KD and James Harden. James Harden, averaged 36 1 year, 35, been in the 30s several times. One of the few guys that says, I got a 50-point triple-double on my resume. Had the second longest streak of consecutive 30-point games next to Wilt Chamberlain, Skip. So we know what James Harden is. Kevin Durant, I mean, nothing that really needs to be said. You can provide commentary without even commenting. He is what he is. Kyrie can be spectacular. I watched that. You mentioned that game against San Antonio, where he goes bonkers and there's nothing they can do. They're running double teams at him. They're doing everything they possibly can to get the ball out of his hand. He gives it up to LeBron, comes and gets it back again, and just swishes everything. So we know how dynamic he can be. Skip, remember that game 5 when he and LeBron both goes for 41 against Golden State. So as far as handles and explosive mid-range, got the 3, can pull up from mid-range, can get to the rim with either hand, English off the glass, is exemplary. All 3 of those guys can shoot the ball from the free throw line. So yes, Skip, when you look at it, when you just says, okay, each individual player on his own merit is spectacular. Now we have to blend that together. Skip, and the analogy I would use, bacon. Love me some bacon. Don't eat it often, but I love bacon. Gravy. I love me some gravy too. Ice cream. Oreo, or the American Dream, I think it's a Ben & Jerry's, a Stephen Colbert on the front. Love that. Don't eat it anymore, Skip.
Hope not.
With those 3 things, separate, yummy, combine them. How's it really going to taste? So when you combine all these guys together, what is it really going to look like, Skip? I think everybody wants to know, because we know apart what these things can be. Together, are they something close to that? If they are, there's no question. But, Skip, it's still hard. When you look at the Showtime Lakers, Skip, you look at offensively and the amount of points they were putting up. That's how they got the name Showtime, because they were dropping 120 on a night. It seemed like on a nightly basis. So I'm going to need to see these together. On paper, individually, yes, Skip, I don't know. You probably have to go back to the late 60s Lakers when they had Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, and Jerry West. But in modern so we go modern time, Skip, yeah, this is the best collection of offensive talent that I've seen assembled on one team.
Agreed. This has never, ever happened before, because you have all-time scorers at 3 spots.
Yeah.
And I'm underscoring the word scorers because that's what they are.
Yeah.
They can flat out score the basketball.
No question.
Because I was all over the Showtime Lakers. I covered much of it. I was at most of those championship games. They were a blast to watch, but I never considered Magic a great scorer.
No, he wasn't. That's not what he was.
I never really considered James Worthy a great scorer.
No.
But could he run the break like anybody this side of Karl Malone?
Yeah.
Yes, he could.
Right.
Could he go off occasion? Sure,
Yeah.
he could. Could
Game
Kareem,
7 triple-double said that he could.
Could Kareem get you 40 on occasion? Sure, he could, because he was 7 feet 2. We call him 2.
Yeah.
And he had the unstoppable move called the sky hook. But by nature, he wasn't a killer as far as give me the damn ball and get out of my way.
Especially
he wasn't
Skip,
like that.
once Magic came along with the Lakers. Now, early in his career in Milwaukee,
Yep.
he was a different beast.
Well, even at UCLA. Oh,
Yeah.
God. Unbelievable. Back in those days of Lou Alcindor,
Yes,
he
yes.
was just flat out unstoppable.
Yes.
Okay. So now I compare, when most people think of prolific points, you think of the team that Kevin was a part of previously at Golden State.
Yes.
Okay, so I want everybody to focus on if Kevin's a wash, if he's the one